Hi students, you are welcome in this video. Students, in this video tutorial, we are going to discuss about a new literary theory called lesbian or gay criticism and queer theory. Let's discuss about the outline of this tutorial. In this tutorial, I am going to explain you first some of the concepts or terms used in this gay or lesbian criticism. Then I will talk about the beginning of this lesbian or gay criticism, how this criticism began or what were the background of this theory or criticism. Then I will talk about gay criticism. Then I will talk about lesbian feminism, and at the end I will talk about the queer theory. So friends, let's start this video. Friends, nowadays a term has become very popular called LGBTIQ. Now what is this LGBTIQ? First we must understand this term LGBTIQ, and then we will able to understand the queer theory or the lesbian criticism. Now these letters stand for different types of gender orientation. First is L. L means lesbian. Lesbian means there is a woman who loves to another woman. So there is a relationship between woman and woman is called lesbian. Then the second is G. Now G stands for gay. Gay means there is a relationship between man and man. Now it is very straight. Lesbian, woman, woman, gay, man, man relationship, or there is sexual orientation among men. So next term is B. Now B is bisexual, means bisexual can anyone, as its very term suggests that it is bi means two, means a person, a man can love to a woman at the same time he can love to a man, or vice versa, a woman can love to a woman and she also can love to a man. Now there is heterosexual relations in this bisexual term or in this bisexual concept. In this series, next we have T. Now this T stands for transgender. Actually transgender is third gender. Means these kind of persons at the birth are recognized as male or female, and later they turn its opposite. For example, at the birth someone is recognized as male, and when in his growing years he understood that he is not he but she, and the qualities of she is increasing in the mind of that particular person, then he or she becomes the transgender. There may be sexual orientations of these transgenders to the lesbians or gays or bisexual. So this is a T. The next term we have I. I means intersex. Now this is an interesting term. What is there in the intersex? In intersex, the gender of that particular person is not decided at the birth, but doctor label him as male or female, and accordingly the person is grown up, and then he later recognize that there is changes in his hormone system, and then he or she becomes the opposite gender. So this is the intersex. The sex is not determined at the birth, and we have to rely on the doctors, and whatever doctors say it is considered. So the next or last term we have queer. Now queer is the term which covers all these aspects of this community, or it is applied to a community called LGBTI, and Q is stand for queer. Now there is another meaning of this term queer, that this term is applied to those persons who are not conscious about their gender, or there is confusion in their mind about their gender, and they are unable to decide what are their attractions and what they need the person for sexual orientation or for love, or the relations are very confusing in their minds, and sometimes this is related to the question mark. So Q stands for queer as well as question mark in the mind of those persons. So these are the terms which are there in the lesbian or gay criticism, LGBTIQ. Now friends, let's think about how did this branch develop. So it has its roots in the Stonewall riot in New York in 1967. There is a gay bar called Stonewall in the New York City, and once there police goes and raids this bar, and directly these gay persons come out on the road and they resist the raid, and from there the movement called gay liberation movement took momentum, and it is developed in 1970, and this has taken a larger nature in America, and from America it spread in Europe, and from Europe it spread in the remaining world. So this gay liberation movement can be considered as the foundation for this gay studies or gay research or the queer studies or queer theory. So this is the background of the beginning of this queer or lesbian theories. So here we have words of Krishna Swami and others. Let's read these words and understand what is this criticism. Lesbian or gay criticism, like feminist criticism, is gender oriented and is emerging as a field of study mainly to critically examine the attitudes of our society towards lesbians and gays as part of cultural studies. Lesbian feminism emerged in the 1980s as a byproduct of feminist studies and has gained momentum in the 1990s. Now friends, it is very clear from the view of Krishna Swami that this type of criticism is developed in 1990s, and its emphasis on the lesbians or lesbian study or gay studies, and later a branch called lesbian feminism came from this study. So first let's understand what is gay criticism or gay studies, then we will talk about lesbian feminism, and at the end queer theory. So gay criticism or gay theory. Now friends, as we have discussed in the psychoanalysis, that Sigmund Freud is very significant critic or the scholar who laid the foundation for psychoanalysis, and he also investigated the sexual orientations of human beings, and there is great influence on this theory of gay criticism. There are two major influential figures in this field. One is Sigmund Freud and the other is Michel Foucault. In 1905, Sigmund Freud had composed an essay called On the Theory of Sexuality, and in that essay he disclosed the fact that the sexual orientation can happen between two men. Man can find sexual interest in another man. Now here the idea of heterosexuality is contested, and he very clearly stated in that essay that there is homosexuality, and from there we find different types of critics came and they contested this view of Sigmund Freud, but later it is established in the canon that there may be possibility of the homosexuality, and from there we find that this gay criticism or gay theory is developed. So the root is homosexuality and the contestation of the heterosexual. And now friends, there is second figure who is influential in this gay criticism, Michel Foucault. He wrote The History of Sexuality in 1975, and in that he directly declared that homosexuality is a practice and it can be recognized as a genre, or it can be recognized as a separate species or a different category. And from there again this gay criticism has took momentum and it flourished in the various branches of study, and it also came in the literature, and from there we find these kind of theories are applied to the literature, and various texts are analyzed based on this kind of theories of Michel Foucault and Sigmund Freud. Homosexuality, heterosexuality, lesbianism, and various sexual orientations of the persons or the characters are taken into consideration for the analysis. Now friends, this is about the gay criticism, or we can say that it is the part of lesbian criticism also. Now let's move to the next part, that is lesbian feminism. Now what is lesbian feminism? Actually this branch of study came from the feminism in 1980s, and it has its root directly in the feminism. There are some critics who argue that this branch came because of the resistance of some female writers, that there is marginal status given to the lesbian studies, and there is a need to separate this lesbian studies from this feminism. Here we have Bonnie Zimmerman, and she wrote What Has Never Been, an overview of lesbian feminist criticism, and in that essay she talks about there is a need of the separation of feminism from lesbianism, and there is a resistance against this feminism, and According to her, feminist critics have given marginal status to lesbianism, and hence it is very crucial to separate this feminism from the lesbianism, or lesbianism should be considered as a separate branch. Again, we have a crucial essay in the same series, The Woman Identified Woman, which is published in 1973 in the Radical Feminism. And now in that essay, taking from the same direction from Zimmerman, it is considered that lesbianism is central in the feminism and it should be studied as a central point in the feminism. Now friends, when we look at these essays composed by Bonnie Zimmerman and the essay published in the Radical Feminism in 1973, we find that there is a conflict between heterosexuality and lesbianism in women or in the study of feminism. And there is another essay composed by Andrea Rich, and in that essay she talks about a middle way about this conflict which is arised in the field of feminism, heterosexual feminists versus lesbians. Now she has coined a new term called lesbian continuum, and according to her, in this lesbian continuum we can add experiences of female rather than or beyond from the sexual orientations with the women. So let's read these words and understand what is the middle path between these heterosexual feminists and the lesbians. I mean the term lesbian continuum to include a range through each woman's life and throughout history of woman identified experience, not simply the fact that a woman has had or consciously desired genital sexual experience with another woman. Now friends, it is very clear that this concept lesbian continuum goes beyond the sexual orientation of women. Now it includes many forms of women. For example, there is women network in professional types of places, or wherever women work there is women network, and women supports women, and all these kinds of experiences are taken in this lesbian continuum. Now if you look at this term, you find that this is a broader or larger term, and at some extent the conflict has been diffused here in this term lesbian continuum, or this term has gained again a very popularity in the field of this lesbian or gay criticism or queer theory. Now again, Zimmerman has written an essay after 10 years, Lesbians Like This and That, Some Notes on Lesbian Criticism for the 90s. And in that particular essay, she has recognized that the field of lesbian studies or the gay studies is not constant, but it is changing, and there must be some revision or there must be some contestation regarding this field of study. And hence today we find that this field has acquired many kinds of changes in itself, and it has become again broader. So friends, now we have last term or last theory called queer theory. Now this queer theory also is the we can in a way say that a byproduct of this gay criticism or the lesbian or the lesbian feminist criticism. Now what is there in this queer theory? Let's understand. Now friends, there is a conference held in 1990 at University of California, Santa Cruz, and in that conference, actually this conference is completely based on the queer theory, or the very we can say that the theme of this conference was queer theory. And in that particular conference many things were discussed. For example, the political and social identity of gays, and particularly it is considered that this term queer theory is specialized by gays and they use this term often, and hence they are discussed the political and social issues regarding this queer theory and the identity of the lesbians or gays in that particular conference. And again friends, we have Judith Butler's contribution to the anthology called Outside or Inside, Gay Theories and Lesbian Theories. And in that particular anthology she talks about the nature of this queer theory is not stable and it need to be contested, and again it need to be revisioned. So it is not stable, or it is changing all the time. Again, there is a significant contributor to this queer theory called Sedgwick, and she wrote an essay called Epistemology of Closet, and in that particular essay she talks about this identity of queerness or the identity of lesbian can be revealed to family or close friends, but it cannot be revealed in your colleagues or in the offices or at the workplace. So there are multiple identities attached to the queer persons or the lesbians or gay persons. Now, how we can recognize this lesbian text? There is the first thing, it should be written by a lesbian. There should be lesbian person who is written. If it is written by lesbian, you can consider it as the lesbian text. Again, it should be written about lesbians, means there are possibility this text might be written by the person who is not gay or lesbian but a heterosexual person, and but he is or she is writing about this lesbian. So this is also considered as the lesbian text. And there is a third possibility, or there is third thing, that it should reveal or express the lesbian vision. Now this is a whole kind of thing, that what is the lesbian vision. Now friends, here at the end of this tutorial I would like you to understand how or what these lesbian critics do, or what are their major tools of analyzing lesbian texts or analyzing the lesbian criticism. So here we have given it in Peter Barry very clearly. So I will read these statements given by Peter Barry so that you can understand easily. What lesbian critics or gay critics do: the very first, they identify and establish a canon of classic lesbian or gay writers whose work constitute a distinct tradition. Now here there is a canon of lesbian or gay texts, and first they recognize it, the very first thing. Second thing, they identify lesbian or gay episodes in mainstream work and discusses them as such. For example, the relationship between Jane and Helen in Jane Eyre. Now it is in the deep of the text that there is some incident, there is some event in the text which reveals this kind of lesbian things or gay kind of things. Here we have given the example of Jane Eyre, the relation between Jane and Helen. So this thing also they do. The third thing we have, they set up an extended metaphorical sense of lesbian or gay so that it connotes a moment of crossing a boundary or blurring a set of categories. So they include different types of categories in itself. The next we have expose the homophobia of mainstream literature and criticism as seen in ignoring or denigrating the homosexual aspects of the work. Now friends, homophobia is nothing but a kind of fear of the homosexuality, and they stress this fear in the literary texts. Next we have, they foreground homosexual aspects of mainstream literature. Now they found the homosexual elements in the mainstream literature, and based on that they analyze this literature or these kinds of texts. And the last we have, foreground literary genres previously neglected, which significantly influenced ideals of masculinity or femininity. And in the last, we find that they not only take into consideration the text but genres also. They discuss the genres also in broader categories of the lesbian or gay theories. So friends, this is all about the theory of lesbianism or gay criticism or queer theory. So friends, one thing you should remember, that this is a basic lecture in the understanding of gay criticism or lesbian criticism. So if you find any difficulty in understanding these terms or this kind of criticism, please comment below in the comment box. I will appreciate your comments and reply to your comments. So thank you very much for watching this complete tutorial. Please like this video, share this video among your friends, and subscribe to Literature Simple.